My son and his wife abandoned me on Thanksgiving morning to fly to an $18,000 a week resort. 3 hours later, she posted a TikTok celebrating how they'd finally ditched the toxic family member, me. The video went viral. 2.8 million people watched my daughter-in-law call me embarrassing and clingy, claiming they'd been supporting my lifestyle for years. But here's what those 2.8 million viewers didn't know. What Shane and Maribel had completely forgotten. I'm Elias Thornwick, and I still owned everything they thought was theirs. The house they lived in? Mine. The trust fund for their kids? Mine. The credit cards funding their luxury vacation? All mine. That Thanksgiving evening, sitting alone with a turkey dinner for one, I made a decision that would change everything. I walked to my safe and pulled out documents they'd never seen. Documents that proved exactly who had been supporting whom. You know what they say about people who bite the hand that feeds them? Sometimes that hand decides to stop feeding. Now, I know some of you watching this might think I went too far with what happened next. Others might say I didn't go far enough. Drop a comment and let me know where you stand on family boundaries. And make sure you're subscribed, because this story gets much more intense. Trust me, you won't want to miss what I did with those legal papers. Because when someone calls you toxic to the entire internet, sometimes the best response is showing them what toxic actually looks like. My name is Elias Thornwick. I'm 69 years old, retired from Boeing, where I spent 32 years as a structural engineer. My hands still remember the feel of blueprints, the precision of measurements. Details matter in my world. Always have. Eleanor and I raised Shane in this same house in Bellevue. She passed 4 years ago from cancer, and I promised her on her deathbed I'd always take care of our boy. "Promise me, Eli," she whispered, her fingers cold against mine. "Always look after Shane." The weight of that promise settled into my chest like concrete. I kept that promise, maybe too well. After Eleanor died, Shane struggled. His business partner had embezzled from their startup, leaving Shane with crushing debt. I stepped in without hesitation, paid off his business loans, covered his mortgage when times got tight. When he and Maribel needed a bigger place for the grandkids, I offered our family home. They moved in 5 years ago. I downsized to a small apartment 15 minutes away. Told myself it was temporary. Told myself family comes first. The deed to the house remained in my name, a detail that seemed unimportant at the time. Shane had assumed it was his. I never corrected that assumption. Maybe that was my first mistake. The numbers tell a story I tried not to think about. Shane's MBA at University of Washington, $180,000. I wrote those tuition checks every quarter without complaint. His wedding to Maribel, $85,000 for what she called her dream day. The reception alone cost more than most people make in a year. Their first house down payment, $120,000. I handed over the cashier's check with pride, watching my son sign his first mortgage papers. The startup loan when Shane wanted to launch Pinnacle Digital Solutions, $200,000. "It's going to change everything, Dad," he said, eyes bright with possibility. The business lasted 14 months. Not a penny was ever repaid. "Bad timing," Shane explained when the company folded. "You understand, right, Dad? These things happen." I nodded, swallowed the disappointment, told myself that's what fathers do. Every transaction was documented. Every check, every bank transfer, every signed agreement. I'm an engineer. I keep records of everything. The files sit in my home office, organized by date and purpose. Eleanor used to tease me about my filing system. "Eli, you keep receipts for coffee," she'd laugh. I didn't know then how important those receipts would become. But I was starting to notice things, small things that made my chest tighten when I lay awake at night. The conversation happened on a Tuesday in March 2019. Shane and Maribel sat across from me at my kitchen table, Maribel's manicured fingers drumming against the wood. "Dad, we need more space," Shane began. "The kids are getting bigger and Maribel's pregnant again." "What are you thinking?" I asked, though I already sensed where this was heading. "Well," Maribel jumped in, her voice sweet as artificial honey, "we were hoping you might let us move into the main house. Just temporarily, of course, until we can figure something else out. My throat went dry. The house Eleanor and I built our life in, where we'd raised Shane, celebrated birthdays, hosted Christmas mornings. Where would I live? I asked quietly. There's that nice apartment complex on 148th, Shane said quickly. It's smaller, but perfect for one person. More manageable, as if our family home had become a burden. I said yes, of course. What else could I do? Family first, Eleanor always said. I found a one-bedroom apartment, packed up our memories, and handed Shane the keys to his childhood home. The deed never changed hands. Shane assumed it had. I never told him otherwise. That oversight would prove more significant than any of us imagined. 6 months after they moved in, I sat in attorney Patricia Wells's office, watching her slide papers across her mahogany desk. This will ensure your grandchildren's education is fully funded, she explained, her voice professional and warm. The trust fund will accumulate interest until they reach college age. $520,000. The entire amount I'd received from Eleanor's life insurance policy, every penny set aside for 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Jake. I signed the documents with the same care I'd once used to approve aircraft specifications. My signature felt heavy on the paper. Now, Mr. Thornwick, Patricia said, adjusting her glasses, you'll retain full authority to modify or revoke the trust until the children reach 18. This clause here protects against any unforeseen circumstances. I nodded, though I couldn't imagine any scenario where I'd need such protection. These were my grandchildren, my family. Maribel asks about the kids' inheritance sometimes, I mentioned, almost casually. Patricia's pen paused. What does she ask exactly? Just general questions. How much, when they'll get it, that sort of thing. I see. Patricia made a note in the file. Well, the specifics remain between us for now. The beneficiaries don't need to know exact amounts until they're of age. I walked out of that office feeling generous, responsible, a grandfather providing for the future. The trust documents went into my home safe, alongside the house deed and other important papers. Papers I hadn't looked at since. Shane's second business venture launched 18 months later, with the kind of enthusiasm that should have made me cautious. Pinnacle Digital Solutions was going to revolutionize small business marketing, he explained, pacing around my living room with the energy of a man half his age. I just need an initial investment, Dad, a silent partner, someone who believes in me. The amount was $200,000, exactly what I had left in my savings after the trust fund. I hesitated for maybe 10 seconds before agreeing. You're the best, Dad, Shane said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like expensive cologne and ambition. This is going to change everything for our family. I became a 40% silent partner, though the paperwork was surprisingly informal. Shane handled the legal details. Don't worry about all the corporate stuff, he assured me. I've got it covered. For 14 months, I received quarterly updates. Business was challenging but promising. Growth was slower than expected but steady. The marketing industry was evolving rapidly. Then came the phone call. Dad, I have some bad news. Shane's voice was flat, defeated. The company's folding. Market conditions, timing, competition. It's just not working out. $200,000. Gone. What about the partnership agreement? I asked. The asset recovery? There aren't really any assets left, Dad. I'm sorry. I know you were counting on getting your investment back. I wasn't counting on it. I was expecting it. There's a difference. But I said nothing, just nodded and added another file to my cabinet. The life insurance policy had been Eleanor's idea, back when Shane was still in high school. Promise me if something happens to you, our boy will be taken care of, she'd said after her neighbor's husband died suddenly, leaving his family struggling. The policy grew over the years, $1.4 million in total coverage, with Shane and now Maribel listed as beneficiaries. The monthly premiums came straight from my checking account, automatic as breathing. Last month, I'd gotten my annual physical. Dr. Martinez had been impressed. Blood pressure's perfect. Cholesterol levels are excellent for someone your age. Whatever you're doing, keep it up, Elias. You're healthier than most 50-year-olds. How many more years you think I have, Doc? I'd asked, half joking. With your family history and current health? Easily 20, maybe 25. Your father lived to 92, didn't he? He had. 92 and sharp as a knife until the end. Walking home from that appointment, I thought about the policy, about how Maribel sometimes asked about my health with a particular kind of interest. You're feeling okay, right, Dad? No chest pains or anything unusual? Always followed by a quick smile, a pat on my arm. I'd mentioned the policy once during dinner at their house. Just so you know, if anything happens to me, you'll be comfortable, I'd said. Maribel's eyes had lit up. That's so thoughtful of you. Shane had nodded absently, scrolling through his phone. But I was in excellent health. The policy was just a safety net with changeable beneficiaries. The real estate assessment arrived in my mailbox on a Tuesday morning in September. I almost threw it away without opening it. Property tax documents always felt like bureaucratic annoyances. But something made me unfold the paper and actually read the numbers. $890,000. I stared at the figure until it blurred. Our modest family home in Bellevue, bought for $180,000 in 1987, was now worth nearly $900,000. The tech boom had transformed our quiet neighborhood into a premium location. Shane and Maribel had been treating it like their house for 3 years now. They'd remodeled the kitchen with $35,000 of my money, installed a new deck for $18,000, replaced the roof for another $25,000. All improvements I'd paid for, all increases to a property value they assumed they owned. The neighbors certainly thought it was Shane's house. I'd overheard Mrs. Patterson telling the mailman about that successful young man who inherited his father's place. Shane never corrected these assumptions. Neither did Maribel. At family gatherings, they introduced themselves as the homeowners. We love what we've done with the place, Maribel would say, gesturing around the living room where Eleanor and I had raised our son. But the deed, that crucial piece of paper, had never been transferred. The house remained legally mine, a fact that seemed increasingly important. As I folded the assessment back into its envelope, legal documents don't lie. They don't assume. They don't make polite conversation. They simply state facts. And the facts were about to become very relevant. Emma's 9th birthday party was the first time I felt like a stranger in my own family. The invitation came through Shane, casual and last minute. Oh, by the way, Dad, Emma's party is Saturday, 2 o'clock. No written invitation, no details, just an afterthought mention while he was leaving my apartment. I arrived Saturday with a carefully wrapped gift, expecting the usual family gathering. Instead, I found a backyard full of people I didn't recognize. Maribel's parents were there, along with her sister's family, the neighbors from both sides. Shane's college friends who'd driven up from Portland. But when I walked through the gate, conversation seemed to pause. Maribel's smile felt forced as she greeted me. Oh, hi Eli. Shane said you might stop by. Might stop by. To my granddaughter's birthday party. I stayed for an hour watching Emma open presents, taking pictures no one asked to see. Shane was busy grilling burgers, playing the perfect host in what used to be my backyard. Maribel flitted between guests, the charming hostess in what used to be Eleanor's kitchen. I felt invisible, unnecessary. As I prepared to leave, I overheard Maribel talking to her mother near the back door. He's just so intense around the kids, you know. It makes everyone uncomfortable. My chest tightened. I'd raised Shane from diapers to graduation. I'd taught him to ride a bike in that same backyard where I now stood, apparently making people uncomfortable. That night, I saw the Facebook photos. Everyone was smiling, everyone included, except me. I wasn't in a single shot. The request started small and grew steadily larger, like water slowly rising in a bathtub. Dad, Maribel has this amazing business idea, Shane said during one of our monthly coffee meetings. A boutique children's clothing line. She just needs $50,000 to get started. $50,000 for Maribel's business idea. I wrote the check. The boutique never materialized. Then came the kitchen remodel. The appliances are so outdated, Dad. It's actually a health hazard. Maribel's voice carried that particular tone she used when she wanted something, sweet but with an edge of annoyance. We really need $35,000 to make it safe. The granite countertops and stainless steel appliances appeared 3 weeks later. Maribel posted pictures on Instagram. Finally got my dream kitchen. Hashtag blessed, hashtag home goals. The private school enrollment came next. Emma and Jake need better opportunities, Shane explained. The public schools here just aren't challenging enough. It's only $4,200 a month. Only. $4,200 monthly for 2 children to attend schools that would drain my savings faster than the failed business ventures. I said yes to everything. What else could a grandfather do? But I started keeping track more carefully. The amounts, the requests, the timing. My engineering brain began seeing patterns I didn't like. Every conversation seemed to circle back to money. Every family dinner included hints about expenses, about how tight things were for them. My checkbook had become their personal ATM machine. And never once, not once, did either of them say thank you. The rules started appearing like invisible fences around my relationship with my own family. "Dad, you really should call before coming over," Shane said after I'd stopped by to drop off groceries for the kids. "Maribel and I have busy schedules, and unexpected visits are stressful." Unexpected visits. To the house I owned, to see my grandchildren. The weekly family dinners disappeared next. "We're just so swamped with the kids' activities," Maribel explained, not looking up from her phone. "Maybe we can do monthly dinners instead." Monthly became quarterly, then occasionally, then not at all. The kids started calling me Grandpa Eli instead of Grandpa, a formal distance that felt like a wall between us. When I asked Emma about it, she shrugged. "Mom says it's more respectful." More respectful than what? I began to notice the eye rolls when I spoke. Maribel's particular talent for checking her phone whenever I told stories about Shane's childhood. The way conversations stopped when I entered a room, then resumed in different directions after I left. "Dad's getting a little clingy," I overheard Shane tell someone on the phone one evening when I'd called about Thanksgiving plans. "Yeah, since Mom died, he's been kinda needy." Needy? For wanting to spend time with my only family. I hung up before he noticed I was listening. That night, I sat in my small apartment, surrounded by boxes I'd never fully unpacked, and realized something had fundamentally shifted. I'd become a stranger in my own life. A stranger who happened to pay for everything. Mother's Day morning, I drove to Sunset Hills Cemetery with Eleanor's favorite flowers, white roses with baby's breath, the same arrangement I'd brought her every anniversary for 23 years. I'd invited Shane and the family to join me. "It would mean a lot to Mom," I'd said, "and to me." "Sorry, Dad, we already have plans," Shane had replied. "Maribel booked this amazing brunch place. Reservations were really hard to get." So I stood alone at Eleanor's grave, my knees creaking as I knelt to place the flowers against her headstone. The morning was cool, quiet except for distant traffic and the sound of sprinklers watering grass that would grow over people who'd been forgotten by the living. "I kept my promise, Elle," I whispered to the polished granite. "I took care of him, maybe too well." The Instagram post appeared on my phone 2 hours later while I was still sitting on the cemetery bench. Maribel had tagged it, #Best Mother's Day Ever, featuring her mimosa glass raised in celebration, Shane laughing in the background, the kids covered in sticky syrup from overpriced pancakes. The caption read, "Living my best life with my babies. Some families get stuck in the past, but we choose to celebrate the present. Blessed. Moving forward, #new beginnings." Some families get stuck in the past. My hands trembled as I read the comments. Heart emojis and praise for her positive attitude and healthy boundaries. 26 people liked a post that essentially celebrated ignoring a dead woman on Mother's Day. That evening, Shane called. "How was your day, Dad?" As if he didn't already know exactly how my day had been. The call came on November 15th, while I was reviewing grocery lists and planning the traditional Thanksgiving menu Eleanor and I had perfected over 25 years of marriage. "Dad, slight change of plans for Thanksgiving." Shane's voice carried that particular tone he used when delivering news he knew I wouldn't like. Maribel found this incredible deal on a Turks and Caicos resort, Adults only, really exclusive. My pen stopped moving across the grocery list. What about Thanksgiving dinner? Well, that's the thing. The kids are actually going to Maribel's parents for the week, and we'll be at the resort. So you'll probably want to make other arrangements. Other arrangements? For the holiday I'd been hosting for 43 years. I've already bought the turkey, I said quietly. 22 pounds. I was planning to cook for everyone. Dad, don't make this complicated. It's just 1 year. You'll figure something out. Maybe order Chinese food, watch some football. Could be nice and relaxing. Relaxing. Sitting alone in my apartment on Thanksgiving while my family lounged on beaches that cost more per night than most people's monthly rent. How much is this resort costing? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. It's not that bad, $18,000 for the week, but it's all inclusive. Really, when you think about it, it's quite reasonable. $18,000, charged to the credit card account I funded every month. After I hung up, I sat staring at my grocery list. Turkey, stuffing, cranberries, sweet potatoes. Food for a family gathering that would never happen. That's when I knew something fundamental had changed between us. The Uber arrived precisely at 6:17 a.m., its headlights cutting through the early November darkness. I watched from my apartment window as Shane loaded their luggage, 5 matching pieces of Louis Vuitton that cost more than most cars. I'd driven over to say goodbye, to give the kids their traveling gifts, to maintain some connection to this family tradition that was being abandoned for Instagram-worthy beaches. Dad, don't make this weird, Shane said as he hefted the last suitcase into the trunk. His breath formed small clouds in the cold air. We just need this break. Family time can be intense. Intense, as if loving your family was a character flaw. Maribel emerged from the house wearing clothes that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She avoided my eyes, busy with her phone, already documenting their departure. Getting ready to live our best life? She dictated to her phone camera, not acknowledging my presence 3 feet away. Emma and Jake looked confused, clinging to stuffed animals and travel pillows. Why isn't Grandpa Eli coming? Emma asked, her voice small. Grandpa's too old for this kind of vacation, sweetheart, Maribel answered without looking up from her phone. This is for people who like adventure. The car doors slammed shut. No hugs goodbye, no we'll miss you. No acknowledgement that they were leaving me alone on a holiday I'd never spent without family. I stood on the driveway I'd paid to pave, watching taillights disappear around the corner, carrying my family toward a vacation funded entirely by my generosity. The turkey was already defrosting in the refrigerator I'd bought for the kitchen I'd renovated in the house I still owned. Mrs. Patterson appeared at my elbow like a concerned ghost, her morning robe pulled tight against the November chill. She'd been our neighbor for 12 years, had watched Shane grow from a teenager into a man, had attended Eleanor's funeral and brought casseroles during my worst grief. Elias? Where's everyone going so early? Her eyes followed the Uber's disappearing taillights with obvious confusion. My throat felt thick, the words stuck somewhere between truth and the overwhelming need to protect Shane's reputation. Last-minute business trip, I heard myself say. Important clients, you know how it is. On Thanksgiving morning? Her eyebrows pulled together. That seems corporate world, I added quickly. Doesn't stop for holidays. Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She'd probably noticed the vacation luggage, the resort wear, Maribel's obvious excitement. Nothing about their departure suggested emergency business travel. Well, she said carefully, you're welcome to join us for dinner tomorrow. Harold and I always cook way too much. The kindness in her voice nearly broke something inside my chest. Here was a neighbor, someone with no blood obligation to care about my welfare, offering exactly what my own family had withdrawn. That's very generous, I managed. I'll think about it. She squeezed my arm gently before heading back inside. No one should spend Thanksgiving alone, Elias. That's not right. As her door closed, I realized I'd just lied to protect the reputation of people who'd abandoned me without a second thought. And that's when something fundamental shifted inside my chest. I cooked the entire meal anyway, 22 pounds of turkey, seasoned with the herb mixture Eleanor had perfected over decades of holiday hosting. Sweet potato casserole with the marshmallow topping Jake always picked off first. Stuffing made from her handwritten recipe card, stained with gravy from countless Thanksgivings past. My hands moved through the familiar motions while my mind went quiet. Peel potatoes. Check the turkey. Stir gravy every few minutes to prevent lumps. The kitchen filled with smells that should have meant family, laughter, children underfoot begging for early tastes. Instead, silence pressed against the windows like snow. I set the dining table for one person, using Eleanor's good china, the set we'd received as a wedding gift and saved for special occasions. If this wasn't a special occasion, what would be? The last Thanksgiving I'd ever spend pretending my sacrifice was appreciated. The food was perfect, every dish exactly as Eleanor had taught me, seasoned with muscle memory and 40 years of shared holidays. I took pictures of each plate, not for social media, but for myself. Evidence that I'd maintained our traditions even when abandoned. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed with a notification. Maribel's first Instagram post from paradise, a selfie with Shane, tropical drinks raised in celebration, faces glowing with vacation happiness. The caption read, "Finally a peaceful Thanksgiving. Sometimes you have to leave toxic people behind to find your joy. Hashtag blessed, hashtag boundaries, hashtag toxic free." 23 people liked it within the first hour. I sat alone at my perfectly set table, eating perfect food, surrounded by the wreckage of my good intentions. The knock on my door came at 8:47 p.m., just as I was wrapping leftover turkey that would feed me for a week. Mrs. Patterson's granddaughter stood on my doorstep, 16 years old, with concerned eyes and her phone clutched in her hand. "Mr. Thornwick, I'm really sorry to bother you, but..." She hesitated, glancing at her phone screen. "Have you seen what Shane's wife posted online?" My stomach dropped before I understood why. Posted what? She turned her phone toward me, and I saw Maribel's face filling the screen, sunglasses pushed up on her head, tropical sunset painting everything golden behind her. The TikTok video was already playing. "Finally ditched the negative family member." Maribel's voice was bright, celebratory. The camera panned to show Shane lounging on a beach chair, drink in hand, giving a thumbs up. "Sometimes you gotta choose peace over obligation, you know? Bye, Grandpa." She waved at the camera with theatrical enthusiasm. The numbers at the bottom made my chest tight. 2.8 million views, 347,000 likes, 89,000 shares. She tagged it with hashtags, the girl said quietly. "Toxic family free, boundaries queen, chose myself." My hands started shaking, not from age or weakness, but from something I hadn't felt in decades. Pure, cold rage that started in my stomach and spread outward like ice water in my veins. 2.8 million strangers had watched my daughter-in-law celebrate abandoning me on Thanksgiving. 2.8 million people now knew me as the negative family member who deserved to be ditched. "I'm sorry," the girl whispered. "I thought you should know." After she left, I sat in my living room with her phone number and instructions for viewing the video myself. My fingers fumbled with the unfamiliar app, but eventually I found it. Maribel's moment of viral celebration. The comments were worse than the video. "Good for you! Old people can be so draining! Boundaries, queen! Your mental health comes first. Finally, someone with the courage to cut toxic family. Proud of you! This is why I don't do family obligations. Life's too short." Hundreds of comments, thousands of them, all celebrating the wisdom of abandoning elderly parents who become inconvenient. My throat felt raw, though I hadn't made a sound. A few voices tried to defend me. "That's someone's father you're talking about. This seems cruel. What if that was your parent?" But they were drowned in the flood of support for Maribel's brave choice to prioritize her happiness over family obligation. I scrolled until my eyes burned, absorbing comment after comment that reduced my 43 years of fatherhood to one word: toxic. The notification count kept climbing. 3.1 million views, 3.3 million, each number representing another stranger who'd been invited to judge my worth as a family member. But it was the final comment I read that made something inside me snap completely. A response from Maribel herself, posted just minutes earlier. Honestly, he's so embarrassing and clingy. We've been supporting his lifestyle for years. Time to cut the cord. #adulting. Shane had liked the comment. My own son had publicly endorsed the lie that I was a burden they'd been supporting. I stared at that comment until the words blurred together. We've been supporting his lifestyle for years. The lie was so complete, so perfectly inverted, that I almost admired its audacity. In their revised version of reality, I was the dependent. I was the burden. They were the generous providers who'd finally reached their breaking point. No mention of the $180,000 MBA tuition, the $85,000 wedding, the $120,000 house down payment, the $200,000 business loan, the $50,000 boutique investment, the $35,000 kitchen remodel, the monthly private school tuition that cost more than most people's rent. No mention of the house they lived in, the car insurance I paid, the credit cards I funded, the trust fund I'd established, the life insurance policy that would make them millionaires when I died. In Maribel's version of events, I was just a clingy old man they'd graciously tolerated until their patience ran out. 3.6 million people now believed that story. Shane's approval of that comment told me everything I needed to know about what my son really thought of his father. After 37 years of sacrifice, investment, and unconditional support, he'd reduced me to an embarrassing burden in a social media comment. I set the phone down carefully, my engineer's mind suddenly crystal clear. It was time to stop being the generous father. It was time to start being the legal owner of everything they thought belonged to them. I walked to my bedroom closet and opened the safe I hadn't touched in 2 years. The combination hadn't changed. Eleanor's birthday, the date we bought our first house, and the year Shane was born. The safe opened with a soft click that felt like a door, closing on one life and opening onto another. Inside, everything was exactly where I'd left it 2 years ago, organized with the precision that had made me a good engineer. The original deed to the house, dated 1987, with my name and Eleanor's listed as joint owners. After her death, sole ownership had transferred to me automatically. Shane had never seen these papers. He'd assumed the house became his when they moved in, a natural inheritance that required no documentation. I'd never corrected that assumption because I'd thought family was more important than paperwork. The trust fund documents were next. $520,000 in a revocable trust for Emma and Jake's education, established with funds from Eleanor's life insurance policy. The revocation clause was clearly stated on page 3. The grantor retains full authority to modify or terminate this trust at any time prior to the beneficiaries reaching majority age. My life insurance policy lay beneath everything else. $1.4 million in coverage, with Shane and Maribel listed as primary beneficiaries. The policy included a beneficiary change form, blank and waiting for my signature. Bank statements showed my liquid assets, $1.2 million in savings and investment accounts. Money. Shane and Maribel had never asked about, never shown interest in, probably never imagined existed. The paperwork told a different story than Maribel's TikTok video, a story where I owned everything and they owned nothing, where their entire lifestyle depended on my continued generosity. Generosity that had just been publicly mocked in front of nearly 4 million strangers. I gathered the documents and carried them to my kitchen table, spread them out like blueprints. It was time to build something new. I spent the next 4 hours on my laptop, researching Washington state property law with the same methodical approach I'd once used to verify aircraft structural calculations. Details matter. Precision saves lives, or in this case, protects dignity. Tenant eviction procedures were straightforward. As the legal owner, I could terminate their residence with 20 days written notice, delivered by a process server. No other justification required. Property ownership carried absolute rights. Trust fund revocation was even simpler. The documents I'd signed gave me unilateral authority to dissolve the trust and redirect the funds. A single signed form, notarized and filed with the bank, would close the account immediately. Life insurance beneficiary changes required only a signature and witness. The new beneficiaries could be anyone I chose: individuals, organizations, charities. The insurance company couldn't question my decision or require explanations. Most importantly, every action I was considering was completely legal. No revenge plots, no gray areas, no questionable behavior that would make me the villain in this story. Just a property owner exercising his rights, a trust grantor modifying his gift, an insurance policyholder updating his beneficiaries. Simple business decisions, really. I bookmarked the relevant statutes and printed the necessary forms. My engineering training had taught me that the most elegant solutions were often the simplest ones. Complexity created opportunities for failure. This would be very simple. By midnight, I had a complete plan. By 1 a.m., I'd identified the law firm I'd contact in the morning. By 2 a.m., I was finally ready for bed, sleeping better than I had in months. Tomorrow, I would stop being the generous father they took for granted. Tomorrow, I would start being the property owner they'd forgotten existed. Before turning off the light, I picked up the framed photo on my nightstand. Eleanor and me on our 20th wedding anniversary, Shane between us, all of us laughing at something I can't remember now. Eleanor's hands rest on Shane's shoulders, her face bright with the particular joy that comes from watching your child grow into someone you're proud of. "I kept my promise, Elle," I whispered to her image. "I took care of him, maybe too well." The photo showed us as we used to be, a family bound by love and respect, by shared history and mutual support. The Shane in that picture would never have abandoned his father on Thanksgiving. The Shane in that picture would never have publicly endorsed calling me a burden. But that Shane was gone. Somewhere between the business failures and the financial demands, between Maribel's influence and their growing entitlement, my son had transformed into someone I no longer recognized. Eleanor would have understood what I was about to do. She'd raised Shane with consequences for his actions, clear boundaries around respectful behavior. "Love without limits becomes enabling," she used to say when Shane tested our patience as a teenager. I'd forgotten that wisdom in my grief. After losing her, I'd tried to love Shane enough for both of us, giving without expecting anything in return except the basic respect owed to a parent. That respect was now worth 3.8 million views and counting. I set the photo back on the nightstand and turned off the light. In the morning, I would remember what Eleanor had taught me about love with boundaries. I would remember the difference between supporting someone and enabling them. I would remember what it meant to love myself enough to demand basic human dignity. Patricia Wells had been Eleanor's estate attorney, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an office that smelled like leather and old books. She listened to my situation without judgment, occasionally taking notes in precise handwriting. "Let me make sure I understand correctly," she said after I'd finished explaining. "You own the house they're living in, you funded the trust for their children, you're the policy holder on a significant life insurance policy, and they've publicly stated that they've been supporting you financially?" "That's correct." "And you have documentation for all financial support you've provided?" I slid a folder across her desk, copies of every check, every bank transfer, every receipt I'd kept over the years. Patricia's eyebrows rose as she flipped through the pages. "This is comprehensive," she said. "Most people don't maintain this level of documentation for family transactions." "I'm an engineer. I document everything." She smiled for the first time during our meeting. "Good habit. This makes everything very straightforward legally." She pulled 3 forms from her desk drawer: property eviction notice, trust revocation paperwork, and insurance beneficiary change forms, all completely within your rights as the legal owner and policyholder. "How long will the process take?" "The eviction notice gives them 20 days to vacate. Trust revocation is immediate once filed with the bank. Insurance changes take effect as soon as the company processes the paperwork." I signed each document with steady hands. the same signature that had approved aircraft designs worth millions of dollars. "Mr. Thornwick," Patricia said as I prepared to leave, "you have every legal right to take these actions. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The process server arrived at the house precisely at 10 a.m. on Monday, November 27th. I watched from my car parked across the street, hands gripping the steering wheel as a uniformed woman knocked on the door of what used to be my home. Maribel answered in yoga pants and a tank top, probably expecting a delivery. Her expression changed from casual interest to confusion to something approaching panic as the server explained the documents and requested her signature. The 20-day notice to vacate was straightforward. "You are hereby notified to quit and deliver up to the undersigned the above-described premises, which you hold as tenant at sufferance. Should you fail to do so, legal proceedings will be instituted against you to recover possession of said premises." Legal language for "get out of my house." My phone rang before the process server had reached her car. "Dad, what the hell is this?" Shane's voice was higher than normal, stretched thin with disbelief. "It's an eviction notice." "I can see that. But why? What's going on?" "I'm reclaiming my property." "Your property? Dad, this is our house. We live here. The kids go to school here. You can't just—" "Actually, I can. The deed is in my name. Check the documents." A long pause. I could hear Maribel's voice in the background, shrill with panic. "Dad, this is insane. We're family." Family members don't publicly humiliate each other on social media. "You saw that? Look, Maribel called me toxic and claimed you'd been supporting me. 4 million people now believe that lie." Another pause, longer this time. "We need to talk about this." "You have 20 days, I said, and hung up. Tuesday morning, I walked into First National Bank with the signed revocation paperwork. The manager, a young woman named Jennifer with kind eyes, reviewed the documents twice before processing the request. "Will this completely dissolve the trust for Emma and Jake Thornwick?" she asked. "Correct? And you want the funds transferred to these children's charities?" She indicated the list I'd prepared: Seattle Children's Hospital, Boys and Girls Club of King County, and a scholarship fund for underprivileged students. Yes. The entire process took 30 minutes. $520,000 that had been earmarked for Shane's children was now redirected to children who truly needed support. Emma and Jake would be fine. Their parents could fund their education the same way most families did, through work and planning and sacrifice. The bank provided confirmation letters for each charity, along with official documentation that the original trust no longer existed. Legal proof that Shane and Maribel's assumptions about their children's financial future were as invalid as their assumptions about house ownership. I mailed copies to Shane and Maribel via certified mail, requiring signatures for delivery. Shane's second call came that evening. "Dad, you can't do this. The kids' college fund was my money to give or take away." "But their education will be funded by their parents, like most children's education, the way yours was." "This is different. Times are harder now. College costs more." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before publicly calling me a burden." I hung up before he could respond. The silence afterward felt like breathing freely for the first time in years. Wednesday, I drove to the Mutual of Seattle office downtown and requested a beneficiary change form for my life insurance policy. The process was surprisingly simple: a single page requiring my signature and a witness. The customer service representative, a middle-aged man named Robert, witnessed my signature without asking questions about my decision to remove Shane and Maribel as beneficiaries. "These new beneficiaries," he said, reviewing my changes, "Seattle Children's Hospital and the Veterans Administration. Good choices, sir. $1.4 million that would have made Shane and Maribel wealthy was now designated for organizations that actually helped people instead of expecting support while providing public humiliation." "The change is effective immediately?" I asked. "Yes, sir. Your new policy documentation will be mailed within 5 business days." I walked out of that office feeling something I hadn't experienced in years: complete control over my own life. Every financial tie that bound me to Shane and Maribel's entitled lifestyle had been severed with legal precision. The notification letters went out by certified mail that afternoon. Shane's third call came before I'd finished dinner. "Dad, this has gone too far." His voice was different now, smaller, with an edge of real fear. "The life insurance was... Mom wanted that for us. Mom wanted it for you when you were the son who respected his parents. That person doesn't seem to exist anymore. Please, we can work this out. Maribel feels terrible about the video. Terrible enough to post an apology? Terrible enough to tell 4 million people the truth about who's actually been supporting whom?" Silence. That's what I thought. Thursday evening, I did something I'd never done before. I created a TikTok account. The video was simple. Me sitting at my kitchen table, speaking directly to the camera with the same calm precision I'd once used for technical presentations. No anger, no dramatics, just facts delivered in my steady engineer's voice. "Hello, I'm the negative family member from a viral video this week. I'd like to share some context that was missing from that story." I kept it factual. No emotional manipulation, no appeals for sympathy, just numbers. College tuition, $180,000. Wedding costs, $85,000. House down payment, $120,000. Business investment, $200,000. Trust fund, $520,000. Monthly support, $4,200 for private school, plus credit cards, plus insurance, plus housing. Total financial support over 10 years, approximately $1.2 million. I was happy to provide this support because family takes care of each other. What I wasn't prepared for was being called toxic and embarrassing when I wanted to spend Thanksgiving together. I ended with a simple statement. The viral video claimed they'd been supporting my lifestyle. I thought people should know the actual financial arrangement. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 6 hours, 2.1 million views. Within 12 hours, 5.2 million views and counting. The comments were nothing like Maribel's video. Support flooded in from people sharing their own stories of ungrateful adult children, of sacrifices unacknowledged, of love taken for granted. "This is every parent's worst nightmare. Your son should be ashamed. You deserve so much better." Truth, it turned out, had a way of finding its audience. Friday morning, I called Beacon Moving Company and scheduled a truck for Saturday. Not for Shane and Maribel. They could arrange their own transportation. For me. I was moving back into my house. I packed carefully, taking only what truly belonged to me. Eleanor's jewelry, which somehow had migrated into Maribel's collection over the years. The photo albums from Shane's childhood, which had been stored in the basement. My tools, my books, my father's watch. The engagement ring was in Maribel's jewelry box, exactly where I'd expected to find it. The ring my father had given my mother, which Eleanor had worn for 40 years, which I'd passed to Shane for Maribel without thinking about what it represented. It was never Maribel's to keep. I left everything they'd grown accustomed to. The furniture I'd bought for the house, the appliances I'd upgraded, the big screen TV they watched every evening. Gifts given in love, now abandoned by necessity. The moving truck arrived at 8 a.m. Saturday. Shane's car wasn't in the driveway. They'd probably gotten a hotel room rather than face the reality of their situation. The locks had been changed Friday afternoon. By noon, I was home. The house felt different now, smaller somehow, but also more peaceful. This was my space again, filled with my belongings, my memories, my choices. For the first time in 5 years, I belonged in my own home. That evening, I walked through each room slowly, reacquainting myself with spaces that had become foreign during my exile. The living room where Shane had taken his first steps. The kitchen where Eleanor had taught him to bake cookies, leaving flowery handprints on the counters. The basement where I'd helped him build science fair projects, teaching him to measure twice and cut once. Every room held memories of the family we used to be, before entitlement replaced gratitude, before taking became more important than giving. The master bedroom still smelled faintly like Eleanor's perfume, even after 4 years. I hung her portrait above the dresser where it belonged, next to our wedding photo and the hospital picture from the day Shane was born. These were the relationships that mattered. The love that had built this house, raised our son, created the foundation Shane had chosen to abandon. I changed the locks one more time, just to be certain. The next morning, I would list the house for sale. The proceeds would go to charity, ensuring that my financial support would benefit people who actually needed help, rather than people who felt entitled to it. Shane and Maribel would have to build their own life, the way Eleanor and I had built ours, through work and commitment and respect for each other. Maybe they'd learn what those values actually meant. Maybe it was too late. Before the moving truck left, I placed a handwritten letter on the kitchen counter where Shane would be sure to find it. The letter took me 3 drafts to get right. No anger, no accusations, just clarity about what had changed and why. Shane, by the time you read this, the eviction process will be complete. I've moved back into the house your mother and I built together. The trust fund for Emma and Jake has been dissolved. The life insurance beneficiaries have been changed. Your access to the credit cards I funded has been terminated. These aren't punishments, they're corrections. For 5 years, you've treated me as an obligation rather than a father. You've accepted my financial support while publicly claiming you supported me. You've excluded me from family gatherings in my own house while enjoying the lifestyle my generosity provided. I'm 79 years old. I don't have time to waste on relationships that bring only disappointment. You taught me something valuable this week, that family respect must be earned, not assumed, that love without boundaries becomes enabling, that supporting someone financially doesn't guarantee receiving basic human dignity in return. The house will be sold. The proceeds will benefit organizations that help people instead of expecting help. I wish you and Maribel success in building the independent life you clearly want. Dad, P.S. Eleanor's engagement ring was never Maribel's to keep. I've reclaimed it. I left the house keys on top of the letter and walked away from that chapter of my life forever. Monday afternoon, December 4th, my phone rang while I was unpacking boxes in my reclaimed home office. Dad? Shane's voice was different, smaller, confused, stripped of the confidence that had characterized our recent conversations. We're back from vacation and the locks are changed. Our stuff is on the front lawn. I sent you all the legal notices. 20 days to vacate, remember? But our clothes, the kids' toys, everything's just sitting outside. I'd had the moving company place their belongings carefully on the covered front porch, protected from weather, but clearly removed from the premises. Legal requirements met with minimal vindictiveness. You can arrange to pick everything up at your convenience. Dad, where are we supposed to go? We don't have anywhere to live. The question hung in the air between us, heavy with the weight of choices made and consequences faced. I assume you'll figure something out. Adults usually do. The hotels are booked solid for the holidays. Everything's so expensive, and the credit cards aren't working. Because they were my credit cards. That support has ended. I could hear Maribel crying in the background, her voice sharp with panic. The vacation glow had obviously faded quickly when confronted with the reality of their actual financial situation. Dad, please. We need time to figure this out. The kids are confused and scared. The kids will be fine once their parents start acting like responsible adults instead of entitled children. We can't afford a deposit on a rental without the trust fund money. Then perhaps you should have considered that before calling me toxic to 4 million strangers. Silence stretched between us like a chasm neither of us knew how to cross. Over the next 3 days, Shane called repeatedly as the full scope of their financial situation became clear. The credit cards I'd been funding declined. The private school tuition that came automatically from my account canceled. The car insurance, health insurance, and cell phone plans I'd been paying terminated. Dad, we can't even get a hotel room. Do you know how much rentals cost in Bellevue? I knew exactly how much they cost. I also knew that Shane and Maribel had never bothered to learn these details because my financial support had insulated them from economic reality. What about your jobs? I asked during one particularly desperate call. A long pause. Maribel's boutique never really got off the ground, and my consulting business is still building clientele. Translation, neither of them had steady income. Their entire lifestyle had been subsidized by my generosity, while they pursued entrepreneurial dreams that generated more Instagram content than actual revenue. The bank called about our mortgage, Shane added quietly. Apparently, the automatic payments from your account stopped, because I closed that automatic payment arrangement. Dad, we're going to lose the house. You already lost the house. You never owned it. The silence that followed contained the sound of assumptions crumbling, of entitled expectations meeting concrete reality. What about the kids' college fund? Was redistributed to children who actually need financial assistance. Another silence, this one longer. I don't understand how you can do this to your own family. I don't understand how my family could publicly humiliate me and then act surprised when support has consequences. They were learning what Eleanor and I had taught Shane as a child. Actions have results, choices have prices, and respect can't be demanded, only earned. The apology attempts began Tuesday evening. First came Shane's voicemail. Dad, I've been thinking about everything, and you're right. We got caught up in the vacation excitement and said some things that weren't fair. Maribel feels terrible about the video. Then Maribel's text message. Elias, I'm so sorry about the TikTok. I was just trying to be funny, and it came out wrong. I never meant to hurt you. Can we please talk? By Wednesday, the tone shifted to desperation. Dad, please call back. We're staying at a Motel 6, and the kids are asking why we can't go home. Emma keeps crying. This is affecting them more than us. Thursday brought attempted manipulation. Dad, Mom would be so disappointed in how you're treating your grandchildren. She'd want you to forgive us. Friday's message revealed their true financial situation. Dad, we're almost out of money. The motel wants payment up front, and our credit is maxed out. We literally have nowhere else to go. I listened to each message once, then deleted them. Eleanor wouldn't be disappointed in me for requiring basic respect. She'd be disappointed in Shane for taking advantage of his father's love while giving nothing in return except public humiliation. Saturday morning brought the most telling message of all. Maribel, clearly coached, trying to sound contrite. Elias, I've deleted the TikTok video and posted an apology explaining that we've been supporting each other as family should. I told everyone you're a wonderful father and grandfather. Please, can we start over? Too little, too late, and still not the truth. The video had been downloaded and reshared millions of times. The damage was permanent. The humiliation eternal. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. 6 weeks later, I sit in my favorite chair in the living room where Eleanor and I raised our son. Watching Puget Sound through windows we cleaned together every spring for 20 years. The house sold within a week of listing. $890,000 to a young couple expecting their first child. People who understand the value of family, who called their parents to share the good news about their purchase. The proceeds funded scholarship programs for underprivileged children, feeding programs for families in need, and a children's cancer research wing named in Eleanor's honor. Money that once subsidized entitlement now supports people who truly need help. Shane calls occasionally. I let the voicemails accumulate without listening. He'll figure out how to build a responsible life eventually, or he won't. That's no longer my responsibility. I volunteer at the Children's Hospital twice a week. The kids there fight real battles with courage I never learned from success and comfort. They remind me what genuine strength looks like. Last night, I reread the letter I left for Shane, the words that closed one chapter and opened another. Eleanor was right about consequences, about love with boundaries, about the difference between supporting and enabling. I finally learned to love myself enough to demand basic respect. The engagement ring sits on my dresser now, waiting for someone who deserves it. Someone who understands that family isn't about what you can take, it's about what you choose to give. But before I tell you how this all ended, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. And don't forget to follow for more stories about finding your dignity when family fails you.